When I walked into our very first class, I was not sure what to expect. I was very intrigued about the whole concept of makerspaces, but I was also nervous because, as a typical type A learner, I struggled with the unknown and the open ended nature of this course. I'm very comfortable in the realm of rubrics and the specifics of assignments and directions to follow. And throughout this course, I was challenged to learn in a new way, in a different way, an uncomfortable, sometimes complicated way that challenged me to learn on my own and give what I was give a product that I was proud of. As a teacher, it was interesting to be the student for once and to learn new things and discover, just like my students do every day, and kind of solve problems and be in that uncomfortable place. As a teacher, we always know what we're teaching, we're very familiar with it, and our students are not. So to be in that on the other side of it was very interesting, and I enjoyed the experience because it gave me a new perspective. As an educator, throughout the course, I learned that I needed to let my students explore and discover more. All too often, we as educators give them the answer or try and help them by giving them clues instead of encouraging questioning and asking them questions to help them discover on their own. Giving them the answer does not help them learn how to learn. And students, especially elementary students, need to learn the learning process and how to learn on their own without an adult's help because that's what they're familiar with. My students need to let me give them time to discover. All too often we rush through things and we're in a hurry, and we have to give them time to discover and to explore. And most of the time we learn more through the process than just finding the answer. So students can learn more if they explore that process, just like we did throughout the semester. This ties into my district's goals of establishing a growth mindset this year, just encouraging students to make mistakes, and the mistakes are cool. That's what we say in my class. And that mistakes help us learn. The mistakes are not a bad thing. Just like in our class, I made some glue things that fell apart and my 3D printer never worked. But I learned a lot about 3D printing through that, and I knew why it wasn't working, and I was able to figure out why mine was different than other people's in the class. As far as educational implications, this course was not just about the technology that we learned, but also about a different way to teach and to promote learning within our students. And I appreciated that. It's great that I could teach them all these tech things and how to 2D print and 3D print and code, but it's a lot more powerful, I think, to teach them a new way of learning and of exploring and of not always having the answer or a specific guideline they have to follow. I see great potential for using 2D printing and coding within my classroom, both of which I've talked about. 2D printing, I'm hoping to do more like the pop-up books that I did for my project with my students towards the end of the year. And coding, we've already introduced through Scratch Junior. And I know that my technology teacher is doing Hour of Code this week with code.org. So I think my students will have a lot of exposure to that. I hope to do my lesson with digital stories through Scratch as well, since writing is a big part of my school. 3D printing is harder to integrate given the lack of a printer. My students will still enjoy using Sculpt 123 and they'll still pull it up on our iPads on their own. And I see potential for using that within my classes in order to create things when we don't have clay, or just they can use that software to manipulate different objects and create different things. As an elementary teacher, I could also foresee me introducing a Makerspace center into my classroom, which I've done in the past. But I guess having a more open-ended one for my students, they can explore, experiment, and create free of that adult expectation or us telling them exactly what to do, what directions to follow. Kind of inspired by Destination Imagination, which I've done before, in which students are given challenges and materials but not told how to solve it. We do not have electronics in first grade at my school, but we're invited to plan an after-school club, so maybe I could do something like that with Makerspace. Practical concerns that I have are money, time, administrative buy-in, just having the software, and I think that's an issue for all teachers across the board. I really enjoyed this class, and I learned a lot about myself as a learner and educator. In the future, I hope to use my curio that I got in the mail yesterday And I have been doing a lot of making of things in our house, just as far as Christmas presents. I've been trying to make a lot more this year. I call it my mostly semi homemade Christmas. And like I said earlier, we could do it as a club at my school, which would be a smaller, more manageable size, but also within my classroom. Within my classroom, I hope to use things that we've already used, but also bring my curio into my classroom and explore new and different ways. There's a lot of things on Pinterest that I hope to continue to discover, and following along Dr. Smith's website and just kind of talking to other teachers to see what they're doing. I really enjoyed this course, and I like the format, and I think that it was a different and a good break that taught me a lot about myself as a person, as also as an educator.